Hello and welcome, dear students. These are the guidelines for assessment in listening and speaking skills released by the CBSE for the academic year 2021 to 2022. This is for grades 9 and 10, though the skills for grade 9 and 10 are used for grades 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we need to understand how the speaking and listening skills will be conducted and how students will be marked and how marks will be awarded. Let us begin. The guidelines for assessment in listening and speaking skills: ASL. A is assessment, L is listening, and S is speaking. So we will be using ALS or ASL. We can bring speaking first and listening afterwards. So ASL or ALS. Either way, it can be used. So ALS must be seen as an integrated component of all four language skills. All four is reading, writing, speaking, and listening, rather than a compartment of two. That means it should not be taken only listening and speaking skills separately. All four should be integrated. That means the students need to research, find out, prepare a speech, write the speech. So writing is there, reading, or lots of reading resources, reading of resources involved, writing is involved, and then preparing for speaking, and a person who's listening to the person is responding. So that is how all four skills are integrated. Suggested activities therefore take into consideration and integration of the four language skills, but during assessment, emphasis will be given to speaking and listening, since reading and writing are already being assessed in the written examination. Now, the listening skills, how these will be conducted and what all areas are included in it. The focus is to use the assessment of listening skills for improving learners' competency to listen for basic interpersonal, instructional, and academic purposes. A number of sub skills means under these main skills, sub skills are included. Sub skills need to be developed in the everyday classroom transaction. That means a teacher can mark a student based on classroom participation and interaction, whether the person is able to understand the teacher's explanation, whether the two students who are talking among themselves are they able to understand and respond, or a teacher can mark on that also. Instead of formal, it can be informal also. Given below are some of the sub skills of listening which need to be assessed for the internal assessment component of listening. That is listening for specific information, listening for general understanding, that is the main idea. Predictive listening, that means deducing and predicting what the person is trying to say and what's coming up next. Inferential listening is to find out between two. For example, so and so was born in the year 1970, and at the age of 6 he started going. So you will actually calculate the year 1976. That is inferential. Listening for pleasure, that means enjoying the listening. Intensive listening and evaluative listening. Intensive listening is actually where you listen to a lot of information and you deduce exactly what is. If I say skim and scan for reading skills, then definitely intensive listening is to listen widely and take out only the main chunks for understanding. Evaluative listening is from the listening, what do you understand, what do you take the result from there. Hence, the assessment items being prepared by subject teachers must assess the above. That means whatever topic the teacher is giving to you, the teacher should be able to deduce some part of it from your listening skills that you have covered. Maybe you have understood how to read for specific information. Maybe you have understood how to predict and ask a question in between, how to infer. So the teacher should be able to judge these skills from your conversation as you are in speaking and listening skills. Now comes the speaking skills. Assessment of speaking skills must be made an important component of the overall assessment, using this assessment as learning. That means it should be considered as an assessment of learning. Now, the guidelines for it. Guidelines for assessment in listening and speaking skills, that is for grade 9 and 10, and I have already mentioned as per the CBSE circular, the grade 9 skills are taken for the secondary, that is grades 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. As part of the subject enrichment activities for internal assessments, the assessment of listening and speaking skills will be for 3 marks. It is recommended that listening and speaking skills should be regularly practiced. Art integrated projects based on activities like role play, skit, dramatization, etc. must be used. Please refer to the circular number academic 33 for the year 2020 dated 14th May 2020 at cbseacademics.nic.in regarding the web material circulars for the same. Then comes the activities. What kind of activities can be considered for speaking and listening skills? Activities for listening and speaking are available on cbseacademic.in. It can be used for developing listening and speaking skills for students. This is for teachers. Teachers can also use NCERT book interactions available at the link. It will be shared with the students on Coaching Mentor. Subject teachers should also refer to books prescribed in the syllabus. That means the textbooks prescribed by the CBSE. In addition to the above, teachers may plan their own activities and create their own material for assessing the listening and speaking skills. That means the teacher is allowed to relate it to any of the lessons, short stories, or biography, autobiography, etc., and ask the students to research, find out, write a report, speech, etc., and look at the point whether you can debate on it for the motion, against the motion. So that kind of liberty is given to the schools. Now comes the parameters for assessment. The listening and speaking skills are to be assessed on the following parameters. The first is the interactive competence, that is initiation and turn taking, relevance to the topic, that is initiating on a topic, and turn taking, waiting and listening for someone to finish and then uh, beginning to talk. It is to avoid interruption. This is what turn taking is all about. Then is fluency, that is cohesion. You're able to use transitional words, sequence markers, linkers, connectors. So cohesion, coherence, speed of delivery. You are able to connect with the previous information, and whether your fluency tells whether you're giving an example, you are citing an additional information, you are building on that information, you are giving a contrary argument. So the words of cohesion should show fluency. And your speed of delivery is not the speed at which you should be rushing your part of the dialogue. It is actually to what extent you are able to respond quickly when a person poses a question. You don't take a gap of say 2 to 5 seconds, let me think, etc. So it should be spontaneous and it should be fluent, not the speed of talking. It is the speed of conversation. That means when a person finishes, you are responding, then that person finishes, then the next person is responding. That is how it should be fluent. Pronunciation of words, that is end syllables, intonation, rising intonation, falling intonation, language accuracy and vocabulary, that is grammar, and your choice of vocabulary pertaining to the topic under discussion. Now, suggestive rubric is given over here, which includes interaction. The first category is interaction. It is a 5-point scale. That means the lowest scale is 1 and the highest scale is 5. When we prepare for our speaking listening skills, we usually look at the highest scale and prepare so that we don't fall short and drop down to the lowest level. So look at the highest level. Can initiate and logically develop simple conversation on familiar topics, can take turns appropriately. This is the major area regarding interaction. Now, if we fall short, let us see how can we fall short. Interaction is adequately initiated, that means insufficiently, and develop, can take turns but needs little prompting. That means someone has to tell you, a teacher has to intervene in between to either stop or prompt you to talk. So that is a drawback. A lower than that would be develops interaction adequately, makes, however, minimal effort to initiate conversation. That means doesn't initiate very well, or yes, no kind of replies are there, and needs constant prompting to take turns. That means either one has to be stopped, please give chance to someone else to talk, or the person is not initiating at all and the teacher has to say, now it is your turn to talk. So let us look at the highest only and not go back to the lowest and see. The next is pronunciation. Again, we'll look at the highest point. Can pronounce correctly and articulate clearly. Next is always comprehensible, uses appropriate intonation, that is rise and fall of voice. If it's a question, whether it's an open-ended question with the rising um, a question asking for information, rising intonation, a closed-ended question which involves a red yes or no answer, so falling intonation. Then a lower level could be most correct pronunciation, clear articulation, can be clearly understood. Most of the time, very few phonological errors or pronunciation errors are there. So let's aim for the highest, that is scoring 5 marks. Next we have is fluency and coherence. Fluency and coherence, it is speaks fluently, almost with no repetition and minimal hesitation, develops topic fully and coherently. This is regarding the topic development. Speaks without noticeable effort with the little repetition. So that means one repetition is a drawback over here, and demonstrates hesitation to find words. That means fumbling for looking for words, or use correct grammatical structures. That means constructing one structure, then correcting oneself, so that it shouldn't have an s, or it should have an s. So grammatical structures or self corrections that will lead to 1 mark held back while marking. Topics not fully developed to merit. That means just beating about the bush, no, not giving any structural development of topic, not building it with examples, not citing certain references, etc. This is fluency and coherence relevant to the topic. Previous fluency was related to the language use. Now this is fluency of topic. Next is vocabulary and grammar, that is the choice of vocabulary and grammar. The highest score, let us look at the highest score, can express with some flexible and appropriacy on a variety of topics such as family, hobbies, work, travel, and current events. So your flexibility, you're able to relate to your environment, immediate environment, frequently uses complex forms and sentence structures, has enough vocabulary to express himself or herself. So this is mostly based on the flexibility, the person doesn't struggle for appropriate words, the person doesn't use just basic vocabulary to express viewpoint, the person is able to use actual and apt vocabulary and has enough vocabulary to express that particular topic. So when one is preparing, one has to prepare for vocabulary, the choice of words, expressions, certain sentence frames, like in my opinion, I think, I feel, I believe. These kind of constructions should be ready with the students. For example, it can be said that, for instance, it can be stated that if the students are ready with these kind of references, the fluency will definitely take place. And while the student is pronouncing these preconceived kind of frames, sentence frames, you get ample time to think logically and talk. Next is regarding the schedule and record keeping. The practice of listening and speaking skills should be done throughout the academic year. It is not only for examinations. The final assessment of the skills is to be done as per the convenience and schedule of the school. So that means the board is not deciding when you should have it, but it should be on regular basis. Record keeping, the record of the activities done and the marks given must be kept for 3 months after the declaration of result for any random checking by the board. So the students are the recorded videos are shared with the teachers. The students should make sure that while they are being assessed, a recorded video is made available and the teacher keeps it for about 3 months after the board examination. With this, we come to the end of the guidelines. If the students have any questions, students are requested to post their questions in the comment box so that those questions can be answered and it can be widely understood. Thank you very much for your kind attention.